Test one, two, test one, two. Mic check. Good morning, everyone. For those that are speaking today, if you're registered to speak and you're coming up to the podium, please make sure that the light is on as it is right now. It will normally be off and muted so that the next speaker that's coming up won't be heard. So if you don't mind, go ahead and push the button to make sure that the light is on. And then before you leave the podium, please mute the microphone as I'm about to do right now.
Guys, this agenda meeting will start at 9:35. Thank you. Well, good morning and welcome to the July 15th, 2026 meeting of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. The time is 9:35 a.m. Sorry about the slight delay. For the record, Chairwoman Brooke Popp, and I'm joined here with my fellow commissioners, Katarina Gonzalez and Tanya Miller, our General Counsel, Mary Smith, and our Interim Public Interest Counsel, David Timberger. For each item that argument and discussion is allowed, we'll inform parties and the public of time limits for their discussion. Registration closed at 9:30, but if you'd like to address the commission on a particular item, please visit our registration table if you're here in person, or if you're on the webinar, email us at agenda@tceq.texas.gov, and we'll do our absolute best to accommodate your requests. For those making presentations, please wait to begin your presentation until I've asked you to begin speaking, and please check to make sure that your line is unmuted before proceeding. With that, Mary, first item.
Item number 1 is the consideration of the proposal for decision and proposed order concerning the petition for the creation of Lakeview Mud Number 1 of Ellis County. The parties have been notified that the petitioners collectively will have 8 minutes, the protestants collectively will have 8 minutes, and the ED and OPIC will each have 5 minutes of oral argument time. The petitioner should speak first and may reserve a portion of their time for rebuttal as they bear the burden of proof in this matter. So with that, we'll begin with the petitioners, and I believe we have Mr. Moore here for them.
Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, good morning. I'm Brian Moore with the law firm of Coates Rose, and we represent the petitioners for the creation of Lakeview Mud Number 1 of Ellis County. The ALJ, in her proposal for decision, recommends that the district be created, and of course, we support that recommendation. We appreciate the ALJ's time and our thorough consideration of the evidence and the parties' arguments. And we appreciate you and your time and the important work of this agency, particularly that of the ED's district's creation review team, in ensuring that in Texas, we are creating districts that are feasible, practicable, necessary, and beneficial. And that is what the evidence demonstrated in this case. And that is what the ALJ, the ED, and OPIC all found in this case. That proposed Lakeview Mud is feasible, practicable, necessary, and beneficial. The parties presented their cases to the ALJ over the course of a 2-day hearing. Then we fully briefed our arguments to the ALJ in writing. Then we briefed them again. And the city and the county even rebriefed their arguments yet again in their exceptions to the ALJ's PFD. The ALJ responded to the parties' exceptions by noting that, quote, the city and the county's exceptions do little more than re-argue the arguments they made during the hearing and in briefs. Accordingly, there is nothing left to argue here today that has not already been fully briefed multiple times by the parties and considered by the ALJ and addressed in her PFD. You've reviewed the record, you've read the parties' briefs and the ALJ's PFD, and we appreciate that. And if you have any questions, I trust that you will ask them. Again, thank you for your time, and I'll reserve what's left of mine and take any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Moore? Nope. Thank you, Mr. Moore. The protestants, I believe it's Ms. Albright and Emily. Sarah. Sarah, your mic's not on.
And I just realized that. And I represent Ellis County and the city of Waxahachie in this matter. The applicants in this case are seeking to create a new local government entity with the power to levy taxes and issue debt. To be granted the privilege to create a MUD, an applicant should, at the very least, provide a plan of development and projected costs to demonstrate that a proposed project is feasible, and the applicants in this case have not done so. The city and the county understand that in a petition seeking creation of a MUD, certain plans and costs of the proposed district may change over time. But an applicant must, at the time it submits its petition to the TCEQ, show that the proposed MUD is legally, financially, and technically feasible through the preliminary engineering report, and that the requirements under Section 54.021B of the Texas Water Code have been met. The applicants have not met this burden for the proposed Lakeview MUD number 1 in this case. Under Section 54.021B, TCEQ is required to consider the reasonableness of the projected construction costs, tax rates, and water and sewer rates in determining whether the proposed project is feasible. Reasonableness of costs is assessed in relation to the time the petition is submitted and the preliminary engineering report is created. Here, the information reviewed by the ED during the technical review process did not accurately identify either the entity responsible for the construction of the offsite water facilities or the manner in which these facilities would be financed. Specifically, the applicant's preliminary engineering report stated that first, Sardis Lone Elm Water Supply Corporation would supply water for the district. Second, that the district would be responsible for constructing all necessary water supply facilities. And third, that the district would then convey these facilities to Sardis. The preliminary engineering report provided estimated totals of $11,509,625 in off-site major infrastructure costs and $9,162,705 in on-site major infrastructure costs. And this was the information that was reviewed by the ED during the technical review process. During the contested case hearing process, however, it was confirmed that Sardis, not the district, would be responsible for the construction of the off-site facilities, and that in exchange for this construction, the district would pay capital improvement fees to Sardis. So in other words, the district is not actually constructing the off-site facilities, even though that is what was represented in the preliminary engineering report. And these costs were erroneously included in the applicant's report. Sardis's representative testified at his deposition that the estimated capital improvement fee to be paid by the district would equate to $22.4 million. He also stated that the fees are recalculated periodically as needed. And as I just stated, the preliminary engineering report identifies off-site construction costs at a total of $11.5 million. The fees to be paid, if we are to accept Sardis's testimony, the fees to be paid in lieu of the construction cost are estimated to be double what is anticipated in the preliminary engineering report by the applicants. There have been no documents whatsoever that have been produced by the applicants demonstrating that the capital improvement fees to be paid to Sardis equate to the construction costs that are contained in the technically complete preliminary engineering report. In fact, the applicants provided no evidence of the amount of these capital improvement fees at all with their petition. In contrast, the evidence elicited during the contested case hearing process shows that the district will be paying capital improvement fees, like I said, in an amount that is almost double what is noted as the total off-site construction costs in the preliminary engineering report. Furthermore, the ED's witness agreed he did not review any information regarding capital improvement fees the district would be paying to Sardis. And this was because the applicants failed to provide any accurate or complete cost information in the petition and failed to itemize or even mention capital improvement fees in their report. In that regard, the ED's feasibility review was deficient because it did not have accurate estimates of the costs to be paid by the applicants or the district. Instead, the ED was merely reviewing the accuracy of costs of infrastructure to propose to be built and to be funded by another utility, namely Sardis. Therefore, the applicants have not met their burden under Chapter 54 of the Water Code to show that their proposed costs are reasonable. And as to the remaining elements under Section 54.021, the applicants have not shown that the proposed project will not have an unreasonable effect on natural runoff rates and drainage. The city and county's expert found that the report failed to provide any information sufficient to support the applicant's claim that Long Branch Creek and its tributaries are adequate to support increased flows or to show proposed site grading. The city and county's expert further noted that the applicants failed to provide any information explaining how the timing of downstream peak flows would be affected by the creation of the district, or provide any analysis demonstrating that the changes in the timing of peak flows or increased runoff volumes would not impact downstream structures. Given these deficiencies with the preliminary engineering report, the city and county's expert testified that it was not possible to determine how the proposed district could affect downstream drainage conditions. Notably, the applicant's expert testified that although he had personally visited the project, he relied only on flood and topography maps to determine drainage patterns and based the proposed stormwater drainage system in the preliminary engineering report on other projects, maps to plan communities, and other MUDs. Finally, the applicants have failed to demonstrate that the proposed project will not have an unreasonable effect on water quality. Per the preliminary engineering report, stormwater runoff from the proposed project will discharge either into Chambers Creek Watershed Soil Conservation Service Site 10 Reservoir, an unnamed tributary into Long Branch Creek, or an unnamed tributary to South Grove Creek. Flows from the Chambers Creek's SCS Site 10 Reservoir will eventually reach Bardwell Reservoir, a public water supply source for the cities of Waxahachie and Ennis. As noted by the city's and county's expert, it would be expected that concentrations of nitrate, phosphorus, sediment, and other pollutants would increase in stormwater after development, as opposed to undeveloped space, and negatively affect the water quality in the receiving waters. However, the applicant's preliminary engineering report does not propose any permanent stormwater controls or identify any best management practices to be used before stormwater is discharged into the receiving waters to address increased pollutant loads or to protect downstream water quality. Simply stating that the district's storm drainage system will be similar to other residential developments in the area does not remedy the deficiencies with the preliminary engineering report. It is the burden of the applicant to show that the requirements of Texas Water Code Section 54.021B have been met, and the applicants in this matter have not done so. For these reasons, and all of the reasons provided in the city and county's closing arguments, the city and the county urge the commission to deny the applicant's petition to create Lakeview MUD number 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Edie?
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, my name is Ryan Rakowitz of the Environmental Law Division on behalf of the Executive Director. With me this morning is my co-counsel, Fernando Salazar Martinez. The Executive Director recommends that the Commission adopt the Administrative Law Judge's proposal for decision and proposed order, including the ALJ's adoption of the applicant's exceptions as reflected in her exceptions letter, and grant the petitioner's petition for the creation of Lakeview MUD number 1 of Ellis County. After reviewing the evidence in the record, the ALJ's PFD reflects that the petitioners met the burden of proof on each of the applicable criteria under Texas Water Code Section 54.021B, and her recommendation to the Commission that the petition be granted. The Executive Director agrees with the ALJ's recommendation that the proposed district be created and the proposed order's finding of facts and conclusion of laws, as revised in her exceptions letter. Further, the ALJ found that the protestants' pre-filed testimonies, their testimony at hearing, and their closing arguments did not demonstrate that the proposed district will cause any impacts that are not typical for a standard residential development or have any unreasonable effects based on the factors the Commission may consider under Texas Water Code Section 54.021B3, Parts A through G. In conclusion, the Executive Director maintains her position that the Commission should grant the petition for creation of Lakeview MUD number 1 of Ellis County and issue an order to that effect. Thank you, and we are available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Edie? OPIC?
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, Executive Directors, Attorneys, and staff. For the record, I'm Jessica Anderson with the Office of Public Interest Counsel. We participated in the hearing, evaluated the evidence and arguments presented, and concluded that a preponderance of the evidence shows that the petitioners have met their burden of proof in this matter. OPIC supports the ALJ's recommendation that the Commission grant this petition for the creation of Lakeview Municipal Utility District Number 1 of Ellis County. In determining whether the project is feasible, practicable, necessary, and would benefit the land to be included in the district, the parties in this matter focused their arguments on 4 categories: construction cost, runoff rates and drainage, water quality, and complete justification. Texas Water Code Section 54.021B2 requires the Commission to consider the reasonableness of projected construction costs. In its closing brief, OPIC argued that petitioners met their burden of proof on this issue and that protestants failed to identify any significant inconsistencies in construction costs that would be considered unreasonable. The ALJ agreed, finding that petitioners met their burden to establish the reasonableness of the projected construction costs. Texas Water Code Section 54.021B3E requires the Commission to consider whether the district and its systems and subsequent development within the district will have an unreasonable effect on, among other things, natural runoff rates and drainage. OPIC argued that while the petitioner's preliminary engineering report did not contain specific design plans regarding its stormwater drainage system, petitioners have represented that their system will conform to the protective requirements of Ellis County. In her proposal for decision, the ALJ concluded that the petitioners met this burden because of their successful demonstration that they intend to develop the district's stormwater collection, conveyance, and detention facilities in compliance with the requirements of all applicable regulatory authorities. At this stage in development, this is a sufficient demonstration. Additionally, Texas Water Code Section 54.021B3F requires the Commission to consider whether the district will have an unreasonable effect on water quality. OPIC argued, and the ALJ concurred, that at this stage, petitioners have sufficiently demonstrated that the district will not have an unreasonable effect on water quality. Petitioners have done so by 1. Obtaining a Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit, which will set effluent limits to ensure that a discharge meets state water quality standards. 2. Asserting that they will comply with the appropriate regulations to ensure water quality will be maintained. And 3. Presenting evidence that the development will have no greater impact than similar developments where open space is converted to residential use. Finally, Commission rules in 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 293.11D5J, requires that the preliminary engineering report include complete justification for creation of the district supported by evidence that the project is feasible, practical, necessary, and will benefit all of the land to be included in the district. Protestants presented arguments, in addition to their earlier arguments regarding construction costs, runoff rates, and water quality, that petitioners have not met this burden because they have not demonstrated the feasibility of the proposed water supply, nor the sufficiency of the area roadway capacity. The ALJ was not persuaded by these arguments, and the ALJ found that petitioners provided sufficient information to demonstrate that there is a feasible supply of water to meet the district's needs, and further concluded that protestants' concerns with traffic and road conditions are outside the scope of what the Commission considers in evaluating whether to grant or refuse a MUD petition. OPIC is in agreement with these findings. For these reasons, OPIC recommends that the Commission adopts the ALJ's proposal for decision and grant this petition for the creation of Lakeview MUD Number 1 of Ellis County, with the corrections identified in petitioner's exceptions. Thank you, and we are available for any questions.
Thank you, Jessica. Any questions for OPIC? Nope. Mr. Moore, you have 5 minutes and 29 seconds remaining for your rebuttal.
All of those minutes. I do want to revisit the topic of construction costs that the city and county addressed in their arguments. And I want to state unequivocally that the estimated cost of the water supply infrastructure to be constructed for this district are included in the petition. They are included in our preliminary engineering report, verbatim from what was estimated by our retail water supplier who will be constructing all of these improvements. By law, our petition is required to include, quote, tentative itemized cost estimates of the proposed capital improvements. And TCEQ, this agency, is required also by that very same law to consider, quote, the reasonableness of projected construction costs in determining whether the district is feasible, practicable, necessary, and would be a benefit to the land. Again, those costs, the costs of our water supply system, are included in our preliminary engineering report. When you look at those costs on a per connection basis, our water supplier, Sardis Lone Elm Water Supply Corporation, estimated cost for 3,000 connections. On a per connection basis, Sardis estimate was $7,482.67. When we, our district engineer, took those estimates from Sardis and made them for 2,803 connections, fewer connections than what Sardis estimated, our per connection estimated costs are $7,644.86. We're higher. We estimated higher cost than our water provider did. Now, the city and county wants you to consider Sardis's capital improvement fee, because that's how we're going to pay Sardis or reimburse Sardis for constructing all of these improvements. And the city and the county claim that that capital improvement fee is unknown. That's not true. That's simply false. That capital improvement fee is published, publicly available in Sardis's published tariff. And that capital improvement fee today, as we sit here today, is $7,500 per connection. So you pick the number you want, $7,400, $7,600, which we estimated, or $7,500, which is the capital improvement fee. However you look at it, our estimated costs of construction are reasonable. We've proven that, and the ALJ found that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Moore? For item number 1, we're considering Finch FP Limited and BEF Trust petition to create Lakeview Municipal Utility District Number 1 of Ellis County and authorize road powers. I agree with the ALJ's recommendation to grant the petition and would adopt the ALJ's proposed orders with the changes that she recommends in her June 11th, 2026 letter responding to exceptions. I would also make 2 additional changes to the proposed order. First, I would add a corresponding finding of fact to conclusion of law number 8 to recognize that the record reflects that it is undisputed that the applicants submitted a request for consent for the creation of the district to the city of Waxahachie, petitioned the city for water and wastewater services and received no responses to the request for consent or the petition for services. In conclusion of law number 13, I would also remove the rule reference to 30 Texas Administrative Code section 293.11D5J to emphasize that the preliminary engineering report content requirements are not a separate burden from the statutory determination in the Texas Water Code section 54.021. Colleagues, thoughts?
I agree with that and with your edits. As the ALJ explains fully in her PFD, the petition complies with the statutory and regulatory requirements for a district. I also want to note from page 41 of the PFD that the ALJ states that significant time in this case was spent addressing protestants' arguments that have been raised and rejected in previous cases involving the same protestants or council or were otherwise outside the scope of what the commission is directed by statute to consider. So thus, I believe the petitioner met its burden of proof and provided sufficient evidence to show that the district is feasible, practicable, necessary, and would be a benefit to the land included in the district.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller.
I agree with both of you.
All right. I move that we adopt the administrative law judge's proposed order as revised by the ALJ's letter regarding exceptions dated June 11th, 2026, and to emphasize that the regulatory preliminary engineering report content requirements are not a separate burden from the necessary statutory determination, delete the regulatory cite to 30 Texas Administrative Code, Section 293.11 D5J, in conclusion of law 13, to include a corresponding finding of fact for conclusion of law number 8, add finding of fact number 13A, stating, it is undisputed that applicants submitted a request for consent to the creation of the district to the city. Applicants did not receive the city's consent within 90 days. Applicants then petitioned the city for water and sewer services. And applicants and the city did not reach a mutually agreeable contract for services within a 120-day period. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Item number 2 is the consideration of the application by White Rocks Entertainment LLC for a new TCEQ permit number WQ00165470001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
All right, item number 2. This item involves an application for a new Texas land application permit that will authorize the disposal of treated domestic wastewater at a daily average flow not to exceed 120,000 gallons per day via public access subsurface area drip dispersal system on 27.43 acres in Travis County. The commission received several timely hearing requests as well as one request for reconsideration. For these types of applications, the commission considers a two-step analysis. First, we determine whether the hearing requester has demonstrated how they will be affected by the regulated activity in a manner that is different from the general public. If there are affected hearing requesters, we then consider whether they've raised issues in their hearing requests that are relevant and material to the commission's consideration of this application. Groups and associations are also eligible for a contested case hearing based on membership's interests, but they must identify a member who had standing in their own right and explain how the interests that the group seeks to protect are germane to its purpose. In this matter, I would grant the hearing requests of Save Our Springs Alliance, the Nature Conservancy, James and Teresa Bryant, Joseph Cello, John Duncan, Ryan Holting, and deny all remaining hearing requests. I agree with the ED and OPIC's position that the Bryants, Mr. Cello, Mr. Holting, and Save Our Springs have all demonstrated either how their members would be personally affected by their application in a manner different from the general public and timely raised relevant and material issues for the commission to consider. So I would grant their hearing requests. While the Nature Conservancy is also an association, they submitted their request in an individual capacity as an adjacent landowner to protect their property interests. In my view, they are not seeking associational standing, given that their property is adjacent to the proposed land application, and because they raise numerous interests that are relevant and material to this permit application, I would grant their hearing requests. Concerning the remaining hearing requesters, I believe they failed to qualify as affected persons for the various reasons. The Madrone Subdivision Homeowners Association and the Limestone 40 LLC failed to file timely comments as required by 30 TAC Section 55.211 C2A2. The Greater Edwards Aquifer Alliance and the Oak Hill Association of Neighborhoods did not meet associational standing requirements as recommended by Texas TAC Section 55.205B. Lastly, State Representative Goodwin, Blake and Jennifer Saul, and John White all submitted hearing requests that failed to meet TAC 55.203 requirements to qualify as affected persons. I'll stop here and ask my commissioners on effectiveness. Katarina?
I'm in agreement as to effectiveness.
I'm in agreement.
All right, let's move on to the issues and the request for reconsideration. Moving on to the second part of our analysis on issues, the requesters who qualify as affected persons raised relevant and material issues regarding the accuracy and completeness of the application, human health, wildlife, water quality, including groundwater, siting requirements, odor, monitoring, and the applicant's compliance history. These issues are within our jurisdiction to consider for this type of permit application, and I would recommend their referral. I'd also recommend a 180-day hearing duration. And finally, I'd recommend denial of the request for reconsideration, since the RFR raised similar concerns that were raised in the request for a contested case hearing and did not introduce new, relevant, and material issues to consider. Colleagues?
I'm in agreement.
Same. Do I have a motion?
I move that we grant the hearing requests of Save Our Springs Alliance, the Nature Conservancy, James and Teresa Bryant, Joseph Cello, John Duncan, and Ryan Holting, that we deny the remaining hearing requests and request for reconsideration, that we refer the matter to SOA for a contested case hearing on the following issues: whether the application is substantially complete and accurate, whether the draft permit will be protective of the health of requesters and their families, plant life, wildlife, and endangered species, whether the draft permit is protective of water quality by preventing wastewater effluent from discharging into the surface waters or adversely affecting groundwater, whether the draft permit complies with the applicable siting and buffer zone requirements, including nuisance odor requirements as set forth in 30 TAC Chapters 309 and 222, whether the draft permit contains adequate monitoring requirements, and whether the draft permit adequately considers the applicant's compliance history. Would also specify that the maximum duration of the hearing is 180 days from the preliminary hearing to issuance of the proposal for decision.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes. Give everyone a chance to shuffle.
Item number 3 is the consideration of the application by MI Homes of Houston LLC for new TIPD's permit number WQ0016629001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record. As a courtesy to members of the legislature, the commission allows members to address the commission or allows their staff to read members' letters at commission meetings. And I understand that Representative Metcalf has asked his chief of staff, Lauren McCarthy, to read his letter regarding this item and that she is online to do so. As a reminder, the commission must base its decision today on the application, timely comments, and hearing requests and briefings filed in this matter. But with that, we'll call Ms. Metcalf.
Good morning. Can you all hear me? I'm unmuted.
We can.
Great. My name is Lauren McCarthy. Good morning, Chairwoman Popp and Commissioners, and I am appearing on behalf of State Representative Will Metcalf. With the Commission's permission, I'll read the letter sent on July 1st by Representative Metcalf regarding this item, number 3, docket number 2026-0607 MWD.
Go ahead.
Okay. Dear Chairwoman Popp, I am writing on behalf of my constituents, Joe and Gentry Cartwright, regarding the pending application by M-I Homes of Houston, LLC, for the proposed Kincaid Road wastewater treatment facility under TPDES permit number WQ0016629001. The Cartwrights have submitted multiple written comments and hearing requests to TCEQ regarding this proposed facility. As downstream landowners and cattle ranchers, they have raised serious concerns about the potential impact of the proposed discharge into Mound Creek on their property, livestock, water use, and long-standing agricultural operations. According to their submissions, their property is located less than 1 mile downstream from the proposed facility, and they are concerned that the proposed effluent could adversely affect aquatic life, livestock, and existing use of the stream. I understand that TCEQ must evaluate this application through its established permitting process, and I am not asking the commission to prejudge the merits of the application. However, given the direct relationship between the proposed discharge route and my constituents' ranching operation, I believe their concerns deserve full and fair consideration before any final action is taken. The Cartwrights have raised several issues that warrant careful review. For your convenience, I have attached the Cartwrights memo to TCEQ. First, they believe that the permit application contains material inaccuracies or incomplete information regarding the proposed outfall location, receiving waters, downstream perennial ponds, floodplain and floodway conditions, and the existing uses of Mound Creek. Their comments state that Mound Creek has historically been used for livestock watering, fishing, and contact recreation, and they do not believe the application accurately reflects the conditions on the ground. Second, they have raised specific concerns regarding water quality and livestock impacts. Their ranching operation depends on clean surface water, and they dispute the applicant's assertion that the proposed discharge would have a net zero impact on the receiving stream. This appears to be a direct site-specific concern tied to their property and livelihood, not simply a generalized objection to development. Third, the Cartwrights have questioned whether regional wastewater service alternatives were adequately considered. Their submission notes that an existing MSEC wastewater treatment plant is located near the proposed facility, and they believe connection to an existing utility may be a more appropriate alternative than constructing and operating a separate facility. Fourth, the Cartwrights contend that the executive director's response did not fully address several of their specific concerns. In their contested case hearing request, they stated that their original submission contained 11 primary questions and 1 additional question, while the executive director's response provided 6 responses. They also maintained that concerns regarding the discharge location, discharge photographs, floodway location, receiving stream characteristics, and water body uses were not directly or adequately addressed. Finally, the Cartwrights have raised concerns regarding the engineer's affidavit and exhibit used to argue affected person status. They believe that reliance on straight line measurements from residences or mailing addresses does not fairly represent the downstream relationship between the proposed outfall and their property boundaries. For these reasons, I respectfully request that the Cartwrights be allowed to speak at the July 15th hearing. Their testimony could assist the commission in understanding the local conditions, downstream agricultural impacts, and factual concerns that may not be fully captured in the application materials or written responses. I also respectfully request that TCEQ give full and fair consideration to the issues raised in the Cartwrights' written submissions before taking final action on permit number WQ00166290001. At a minimum, they should have the opportunity to address the commission directly regarding the accuracy of the application, receiving water conditions, water quality and livestock impacts, regionalization alternatives, and the relationship of their ranch property to the proposed discharge route. Thank you for your attention to this matter and your service to the state of Texas. Please include this letter in the record for the July 15th hearing. Sincerely signed, State Representative Will Metcalf, House District 16. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, item 3 involves an application for a new TIPDES permit to construct a wastewater treatment facility to serve a proposed residential subdivision in Montgomery County. The permit would allow the discharge of no more than 75,000 gallons per day in the final phase. For these types of applications, the Commission considers the same two-step analysis I discussed in the previous item. The Commission received 3 hearing requests from 4 individuals that all have livestock operations and permanent residences in the area that raise substantially similar issues. I found this matter challenging based on conflicting mapping information in the backup materials and the close calls that we are required to make regarding effectiveness. While the conflicting maps and close calls, given the relatively small discharge volume, made this matter challenging, after reviewing the hearing request, I would grant Paul Coombs' hearing request. He owns riparian property located immediately downstream of the discharge point and within close proximity to the facility. And his concerns regarding the effect that the discharge will have on his property demonstrate that he will be affected in a manner different than the general public. I would not recommend finding effectiveness for Martha Mayer and Joe and Morgan Cartwright because their property locations are not sufficiently close to the facility or outfall given relatively small volume and standard nature of the discharge to make it likely that the facility will impact them differently from the general public. The issues analysis is relatively easy given the similarities of the raised issues between the hearing request and their general relevance to the application. If we grant Mr. Coombs' hearing request, I'd refer 5 issues to SOA concerning the compliance with public notice requirements, sufficiency of the application, information, water quality protection, regionalization, and facility siting requirements. I believe a 100-day hearing duration is appropriate, and I would recommend a concurrent ADR referral. I will stop here and see what my fellow commissioners think.
I'm in agreement.
Same.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we grant the hearing request of Paul Coombs, deny all remaining hearing requests, refer the application to the State Office of Administrative Hearings for a contested case hearing on the following issues. 1, whether the applicant substantially complied with applicable public notice requirements, whether the application contains sufficient and accurate information regarding the discharge location and discharge route characteristics to adequately develop the draft permit's terms, whether the draft permit is protected of water quality and the existing uses in the receiving waters under the applicable surface water quality standards in 30 TAC Chapter 307, whether the Commission should deny or alter the terms and conditions of the draft permit based on consideration of need under Texas Water Code Section 26.0282 and the general policy to promote regional or area-wide systems under Texas Water Code 26.081, whether the draft permit complies with applicable facility site characteristic requirements as set forth in 30 TAC Section 309.13, set a maximum hearing duration of 180 days from the date of the preliminary hearing until the proposal for decision is issued, and refer the matter to the Commission's alternative dispute resolution program to run concurrently with the SOA preliminary hearing scheduling efforts.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The motion passes. Move on to item 4.
Item number 4 is the consideration of the application by Chesmar Homes LLC and Guadalupe Blanco River Authority for a new TCEQ permit number WQ0016516001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
Item 4 is the application for a new Texas land application permit that would authorize the disposal of 460,000 gallons per day of treated domestic wastewater via surface irrigation on 117 acres of land in Comal County. The Commission received several timely hearing requests and requests for reconsideration on this item. While considering hearing requests for these types of applications, the Commission considers the same 2-step analysis as we've discussed in previous items. First, turning to the sole group hearing requestor in this matter, I would deny the hearing request to the Greater Edwards Aquifer Alliance, as the group failed to identify a member of its organization that would otherwise have standing to request a hearing in their own right. Next, turning to the individual hearing requesters, I would grant the hearing requests of Lee Bailey, Clinton and Stacy Bendel, Lynn Brooks, Eva Hutchison, Jeff and Carrie Joel, Dale and Mary Martin, Dolores Patterson, and Richard and Linda Scollery. These requesters are located in close proximity to the proposed facility and disposal site, and their hearing requests demonstrated personal justiciable interest in the application that are not common to members of the general public. So I'd grant their hearing request, and I'd deny the remaining hearing requests. I'll stop here and gather your thoughts on effectiveness.
I'm in agreement.
I'm in agreement on effectiveness.
Thank you. Moving on to the second part of our analysis, issues to be referred to SOA. I found that affected persons raised relevant and material issues relating to health impacts, including impacts on wildlife and livestock, surface and groundwater quality, including impacts to private water wells, nuisance odor, compliance with siting, buffer zones, and effluent storage requirements, operator classification at the facility, accuracy and completeness of the application, and whether the applicant substantially complied with TCEQ's notice requirements. And finally, I would recommend the standard 180-day hearing duration. In addition, requests for reconsideration were filed raising concerns relating to the water quality and health impacts, as well as notice and transparency of the public participation process. Notice is among the issues I recommend for referral to SOA, and I believe that a contested case hearing is necessary to evaluate those issues, particularly whether the applicant substantially complied with the applicable notice requirements. So I'd recommend denying the request for reconsideration. I'll stop here. Colleagues?
I'm curious on Commissioner Miller's thoughts on that.
I'm in agreement.
I'm in agreement.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we grant the hearing requests of Lee Bailey, Clinton and Stacy Bendel, Lynn Brooks, Eva Hutchinson, Jeff and Carrie Joel, Dale and Mary Martin, Dolores Patterson, and Richard and Linda Scollery. Deny the remaining hearing requests and all requests for reconsideration. Refer the matter to SOA for a contested case hearing on the following issues: whether the draft permit is adequately protective of the health and safety of the requesters, their families, wildlife, and livestock in accordance with applicable regulations, whether the draft permit is adequately protective of surface water and groundwater, including drinking water wells, whether the draft permit adequately addresses nuisance odors in accordance with 30 TAC Section 309.13, whether the draft permit complies with applicable siting, buffer zone, and effluent storage requirements to protect against over-application and runoff of treated effluent and irrigation areas as set forth in 30 TAC Chapter 309, whether the facility is required to have a Class A operator under applicable regulations, whether the application is sufficiently complete and accurate to support the draft permit, including identifying the acreage available for irrigation and identifying required access roads under applicable regulations, and whether the applicant substantially complied with applicable notice requirements. Set the maximum duration of 180 days from the date of the preliminary hearing until the proposal for decision is issued.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I sum up.
Just one moment. Oh,
What?
Hutchins rather than Hutchinson. I think.
Let me go back to a name.
But just to clarify, Hutchins. Yeah.
Hutchins, yes,
Okay.
not Hutchinson's.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Move on to item 5.
Item number 5 is the consideration for adoption of the renewal and amendments of TIPD's Stormwater Multi-Sector General Permit number TXR 050000. The Executive Director's staff is here to present this item.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, my name is Jesse Gresa Lamia with the Water Quality Division. With me today is Rebecca Villalba with the Water Quality Division and Fernando Salazar Martinez from the Environmental Law Division. Staff are here today to request the adoption of the renewal with changes to the Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System General Permit Number TXR 050,000, known as a Multi-Sector General Permit, or the MSGP, which authorizes the discharges of stormwater and certain types of non-stormwater into surface waters in the state from industrial activities grouped into 30 similar sectors based on standard industrial classification codes and industrial activity codes. The proposed MSGP will replace the existing MSGP that expires on August 14, 2026. In addition to some updates to general requirements, benchmark values, clarifications, notifications, and references, the proposed amendment also implements House Bill 7 of the 87th Legislature, Second Called Session 2021, and House Bill 4112 of the 89th Legislature, Regular Session 2025. The draft permit was sent to the United States Environmental Protection Agency for their review on May 21, 2025. On August 18, 2025, the EPA approved the general permit with no objections. Public notice of the proposed MSGP and the public hearing was published in the Texas Register and the Houston Chronicle on November 14, 2025. A hybrid virtual and in-person public meeting was held at TCEQ on December 15, 2025, and the public comment period ended on the same day. Staff received comments during the public comment period and revised the general permit and fact sheet in response to those comments. The Executive Director's response to comments was prepared, which is included in the backup material before you today. In conclusion, staff respectfully recommends the adoption of this general permit and the Executive Director's response to comments. Staff also requests the permission to make non-substantive revisions as necessary to comply with Texas Register requirements. Thank you. We are available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for ED staff?
No questions.
Is anyone signed in on this item?
No one is signed in.
All right. OPIC?
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, and Executive Directors, attorneys, and staff. My name is Mike Orkauskas, and I represent the Office of the Public Interest Counsel regarding the adoption of the renewal with amendment of TIPD's Multi-Sector General Permit Number TXR 05000. The current TIPD's MSGP expires on August 14, 2026. The proposed renewal with amendment incorporates several key improvements, relocating the regulated SIC NAICS code tables from Part 2 to a new Appendix A to improve accessibility and readability, updating language to reflect changes in law and code, including the Gulf of America terminology and provisions implementing House Bill 7 and House Bill 4112 regarding high-level radioactive waste, clarifying existing requirements, tightening 6 benchmark values across multiple sectors based on monitoring data from the current permit term, updating certain addresses, locations, references, and making miscellaneous editorial changes. Facilities currently authorized under the existing TIPD's MSGP permit will need to reapply within 90 days after the effective date and revise their stormwater pollution prevention plans to address any new or revised conditions, and there are no expected impacts to the public. The public was provided notice and a meaningful opportunity to participate. On November 14th, 2025, TCEQ published a notice of the draft general permit in the Texas Register and the Houston Chronicle. A hybrid virtual and in-person public meeting was held on December 15th, 2025, attended by 93 stakeholders. The public comment period closed on December 15th, 2025. Following the close of the comment period, the Executive Director filed a response to comments addressing the concerns raised. In response to comment 4, Part 3, Section A-4E3 of the MSGP was revised to separate the identification of a qualified person into new Part 3, Section A.4E4 to better distinguish this requirement. Additional comments were addressed by the Executive Director, and OPEC agrees with the disposition of those comments by the rule team. Because this is a renewal with amendment consisting primarily of procedural improvements, clarifications, alignment with current law, and more protective benchmark thresholds without substantial changes that would adversely impact the public, OPEC supports adoption of the permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank staff for their work on this permit renewal. The current permit will be expiring next month. The renewal with amendments makes some clarifying and conforming changes that are appropriate, including changes to benchmark monitoring values based on recent data. These changes should improve and clarify the permit, and I'm ready to move forward with adoption. I also believe that the ED adequately responded to the comments submitted during the comment period, and I'd support adoption of the ED's response to comment. I'll stop here. Katarina?
I agree, and just also want to say I appreciate staff's work to reach out to the stakeholders and obtain input on this renewal with amendments. I think there was a lot of stakeholder engagement, so thanks.
Tanya?
93 people attending a meeting is wonderful. Thank you for your work on this. I would move adoption as well.
That is a lot of people. I do have a motion.
I move that we adopt the renewal with amendments of Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System General Permit number TXR050000 and the ED's response to comments.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The motion passes.
Item number 6 is the consideration of gifts and donations of $500 or more in value given to TCEQ, submitted for approval in accordance with Chapter 575 of the Government Code concerning acceptance of gifts and donations. The Executive Director's staff is here to present this item.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, my name is Yen Tran of the General Law Division, representing the Executive Director. Before you are the gifts and donations received by the agency in the past 90 days. In accordance with Chapter 575 of the Government Code, the Executive Director has accepted these gifts and respectfully requests your acknowledgement of these gifts. As always, I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Mary, has anyone signed in on this item?
No one has signed in on this to address the commission.
David?
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, ED Counsel. OPIC has reviewed the ED's approval of gifts and donations and supports the Commission's acknowledgement of their acceptance in accordance with Chapter 575 of the Government Code. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I'd like to thank the ED staff for compiling the report and the proposed resolution, and all of the donating companies for their support of the agency's work and mission. With that, I'm ready to move forward with the approving resolution. Colleagues?
Yes.
I'm ready to move forward.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the issuance of a resolution acknowledging the Executive Director's acceptance of the gifts and donations contained in the TCEQ Interoffice Memorandum to the Commission filed in docket number 2026-0512-MIS.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The motion passes. We'll move on to the enforcement docket.
Give everybody a moment to get up here, and then we'll call the item. So as you said, this takes us to the enforcement docket, and those are items 7 through 60, and the Executive Director's staff is here to present these items.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, my name is Megan Hamilton of the Enforcement Division, and with me today are Amy Settermeyer, also of the Enforcement Division, and Gitanjali Yadav of the Litigation Division, representing the Executive Director. Pending before you are items 7 through 60. The total assessed administrative penalties are $1,620,413, with $244,227 deferred, $561,143 applied towards supplemental environmental projects, and $815,043 to the general revenue. We respectfully request approval of these items and are available to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
No.
Do I have anyone signed in on this?
So on items 13, 15, 18, 32, 34, 43, and 54, we have individuals who have signed in but indicated they don't wish to speak unless the commission has questions. And on item 31, we do have someone who has signed in to speak, Ms. Andreana Alexander. And as a reminder, there's a 3-minute time frame for each person signed in. So we'll begin with Ms. Alexander.
Ms. Alexander?
Hello, can you all hear me?
We can, thank you.
Awesome. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Andreana Alexander. I'm representing the city of San Marcos and our operations partner, Jacobs. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on the record regarding this matter. The city of San Marcos is committed to achieving and maintaining full compliance with all TCEQ regulatory requirements. Since the time of the violations identified during the July 30th, 2024 compliance review, the city has made significant investments in upgrading and improving the city of San Marcos wastewater treatment plant. Most notably, the city completed a membrane diffuser replacement project in January 2025, as identified in the compliance SEP, which improved aeration efficiency and directly supports treatment performance. In addition, recent capital improvements with final completion just issued in June 2026 included installation of 2 new dewatering centrifuges, a new headwork screening unit, a rehab of a secondary clarifier. As a result of these efforts, the facility is currently in compliance with all major permit parameters, including CBOD, total suspended solids, ammonia, nitrogen, pH, dissolved oxygen, and total phosphorus. The city acknowledges that challenges remain with effluent disinfection, particularly in maintaining consistent E. coli levels. These issues have been attributed to aging tertiary sand filtration infrastructure that is at the end of its service life. In response, the city has implemented enhanced operational controls and maintenance practices to optimize current treatment processes while advancing long-term improvements. These measures, including maintaining full operability of the UV disinfection lamps and ballasts, sustaining an inventory of critical spare components in excess of 10%, and performing daily enhanced sand filter cleaning on weekdays during lower flows. Additionally, planned maintenance activities including draining and cleaning the re-aeration basin to remove accumulated debris downstream of the UV disinfection channel, including residual anthracite and sand media carried over from the filters. Looking forward, the city has prioritized additional capital improvements to address these remaining challenges. A design proposal has been submitted and is currently under review. This includes upgrades to the filtration system in question through conversion to cloth-disc filters, rehabilitation of all clarifiers, and replacement of grit handling equipment. These improvements are intended to enhance treatment efficiency and reliability, improve disinfection performance, and ensure sustained compliance. The city has also taken proactive steps to support interim compliance, including coordination with TCEQ on potential supplemental disinfection measures during the transition period. In closing, the city of San Marcos has demonstrated a strong commitment to environmental stewardship through both completed and planned investments in its wastewater infrastructure. We respectfully request consideration of these efforts in support of the proposed reorder and associated compliance supplemental environmental project. Thank you for your time, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you for your comments. Questions, comments? David, OPIC?
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and ED staff. OPIC has reviewed these proposed agreed orders between TCEQ and respondents and does not object to their approval. OPIC appreciates the efforts of the parties to resolve these matters and looks forward to the fulfillment of the terms of their agreements in accordance with the schedules set forth therein. Should the Commission have questions concerning any particular item, OPIC would be happy to consider the matter further. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank staff in OLS and OCE for preparing these enforcement actions for agenda today. Regarding item 56, I noted that this is a third default order in a short period of time for this respondent, and that this respondent has a history of not responding to agency enforcement actions that resulted in civil actions at the Attorney General's office. I would encourage staff to closely follow the respondent's compliance with this and the prior default orders and consider whether a referral to the Attorney General would be appropriate if she continues to be non-responsive to the agency's enforcement efforts. Again, I appreciate all your efforts, and I'm prepared to move forward with adoption. Colleagues?
Yeah, I appreciate all the hard work the Enforcement Division and coordinators and leaders did on this. I see we have a significant increase and have in the last couple agendas on the items coming before us. I mean, this is items 7 through 60, so good job on working through that. Also see there's a lot of supplemental environmental projects today. I was appreciative of that. Want to thank our SEP staff and for the program for their work. Thank you.
I'm ready to move forward. Thank you.
I move that we adopt items 7 through 60 as recommended by the Executive Director. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you, ladies.
Item 61 was continued July 10th to the next agenda. So that will bring us to items 62 through 65, which are for closed session, and the Commission will not be meeting in closed session today.
Thank you. This agenda stands adjourned. The time is 10:41 a.m. Appreciate all of y'all.